This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Could Bryce Underwood actually lead Michigan back to the college football playoff as a freshman? We'll discuss next on this week's episode of Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Hit. Caught.
They said you can't beat Ohio State. Now what?
Brady gets terrific. Throws it. Get it. Touchdown. Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him. And a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Blue, I'm Steve Deace. Welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. We will wrestle with the question we teased at the top. Can Bryce Underwood lead Michigan back to the college football playoff as a true freshman? We're going to wrestle with that because at least one major metric thinks the answer could very well be yes. So we'll get to that coming up in the next segment. But I'd like to begin with just an homage to what just continues to be an outstanding basketball season by the University of Michigan. I mean, this is an incredible stat. The Sweet 16 has existed in the NCAA tournament since 1975. There's never, ever been a team that won only 8 games the year before that made the Sweet 16 the next season until now. And that's our beloved Michigan Wolverines. Now, let me say this, man. If you follow me on X at Michigan Podcast during the basketball games, and I would urge you not to do so, not to. Man, I can't do it, man. I love this team. I hate to watch this team. I've just never seen a team win more games, making more colossally stupid passes and committing more moronically asinine turnovers in my entire life. I mean, if Bob Knight were here, we had to send him to Gitmo for how he'd respond if he was coaching this team. Dusty's idol growing up. It's truly bizarre to watch and extremely frustrating. Man, I can handle we suck. I can handle. Well, we can't shoot. I can handle we're not tall enough. I mean, I can't handle what was that? Okay. Why did we need that pass? At least 10 times a game. All right. Nevertheless, man, the finished product, I think in the moment, as excruciating as this team is to watch at times, many times in the moment, I think history is going to be very kind to this team. And what they did here to launch the Dusty May era at Michigan. Michigan now has been to 6 straight Sweet 16s and NCAA tournaments it has qualified for, and has done that under 3 different coaches. But I would argue that this is the most improbable one. When you look at where this program was, what Dusty inherited was not a program, folks. It was a crater, a smoldering crater. And he had to go in without nearly the NIL arsenal that he has now. And he had to go into the transfer portal and literally not just rebuild, he had to terraform a roster. It was terraforming a roster. This was a cratered program that it had been chloroformed. And to put this together A lot of the teams, in fact, that were heavily built by the portal have been huge disappointments this year, including, by the way, our old pal Hunter Dickinson's Kansas Jayhawks, the first preseason number 1 team never to even make it out of to lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's never happened before. So here we are. By the way, Michigan has already won more NCAA tournament games without Hunter Dickinson the last 2 years and didn't even make the tournament last year. Then Kansas won in 2 years with him, but I digress, right? So what Michigan had to do to go into that portal and rebuild, and not just rebuild, but terraform a roster, and then to get these guys to play together, which you just aren't seeing a lot, and it's certainly not consistently with a lot of the teams that are primarily built through the portal these days. And then to overcome just that awful, debilitating start where it looked like, finish to the season, when it looked like these guys were done, finished, playing out the string, weren't going to win another game. Come back, reinvent yourself, win that Big Ten tournament, come back here and play 2 teams that had 2 styles that were said by everybody, myself included, to directly complement what your weaknesses are. And you see San Diego's case, they don't turn it over and turn you over. In Texas A&M's case, they're the best offensive rebounding team in all of college basketball. Michigan out-rebounded them and tied them in offensive rebounds. So to see them do that, all the close wins this year, this has just been an incredible run. To see a guy like Roddy Gale, who was getting called a double agent, came from Ohio State, and much of this year it has been a struggle session for Roddy Gale. And yet Michigan would not be here without him. He was arguably Michigan's best player the last 2 games, or at the very least its best player not named Vlad Golden. To see LJ Kaysen and join Roddy Gale. LJ Kaysen, that John Beilein used to talk about, this time of year you need outliers, right? Everybody's got film on everybody. So who's that outlier that's going to come out of nowhere and give you either an angle or an addition to their game, or some unforeseen production that your opponent wasn't prepared for? LJ Kaysen, we don't win the Big Ten tournament without him. The lift that he gave Michigan when we were really lethargic and down against Wisconsin, he gave an energetic boost. The same thing down by 10 against Texas A&M. He did it again. So, Danny Wolf, the uniqueness of his game, it's just, this is going to be a very appreciated team years from now in ways that, frankly, unless you have the patience of Job, you simply cannot appreciate in the moment, because they are often an excruciating watch, especially when it's the same stuff, different day over and over and over again. And yet, there's only 16 teams, 370 some odd teams started practice in September. There's only 16 left. And one of them is our team, and a team that looked like it was Chernobyling at this time a year ago. So what an incredible performance by Michigan. What an incredible coaching job by Dusty May. This is rocket fuel for the trajectory of his brand and his program, and therefore for our fandom. So, as I said, after we won the Big Ten tournament, whatever we do from here is gravy. We get to hang a banner. That continues to be the case. It has been an incredible season for Michigan basketball, a team you love to root for, hate to watch, but years from now, you will grow to appreciate. And now it's time for the 10-minute war. You remember, based on the old 10-year war, at least you remember if you're my age or older, between Woody and Bo. And now is also the time when we're going to talk what we teased at the top of the show. Is it possible that Bryce Underwood could lead Michigan back to the college football playoff in his freshman season? Because one major metric seems to think the answer to that question could very well be yes. Let's welcome in Mark Rogers, who's got himself an outstanding college football channel, the voice of college football there on YouTube. They've got correspondent stringers covering the sport from all angles, teams all across the fruited plain all year long. And Mark also, when he decides that he wants to give up sanity and reason, moonlights as a Buckeye fan. Mark, it's good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
You got to afford me that much insanity, Steve, just to keep things interesting. Why not?
Indeed.
We may just luck into or back into a national championship. It just could happen.
I know we've got some experience with that as well, fairly recently. Yes, I know. So SP Plus, you might recall, Mark, that and the audience will, that, and it's really what we debuted Michigan podcast with. Our very first episode in 2017 is when we debuted our team total talent ratings. And for handicapping purposes, I wanted to come up with something that didn't just measure returning starters. We used to look in the magazines growing up, returning starters, Letterman coming back. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that now. There's packaging, sub-packaging of personnel. There's the transfer portal, which didn't exist in 2017 yet when I started doing this. There's incoming recruiting classes. There's those guys that were big-time recruits who maybe haven't played yet. And I just didn't feel like a lot of the power ratings out there accounted for that sufficiently. So I wanted to come up with something that did that by looking at, your composite 4-year recruiting average, because we've also not had, I think, it's been at least 20 years now since we started following this, that a team that didn't have a majority blue chip ratio, meaning a majority of its roster were guys who were 4-star recruits or higher, win a national championship. And so I created this to go back and monitor teams' recruiting classes. And then once the portal hit full bear in the last couple of years, Mark, I just can't keep track of all the transactions. I mean, as you and I are talking, there's over 700 college basketball players in the transfer portal that just opened yesterday. Over 700. Okay. So I have a job. I've got a life. I don't hate my wife and kids. Don't want them to hate me. So I don't have time to follow all of this. And so SP Plus, thankfully, Bill Connolly over at ESPN, he has actually upgraded his formula in the last year to account more for the transfer portal, every last thing. So I'm using him and his numbers now because I'm lazy to substitute for my team total talent ratings. And if you look at his early projections based on returning production and incoming talent, this would be the implied point spread that he would have for Michigan. He's got Michigan 13th, projected to finish right on the bubble for making the college football playoff or not. So you're looking at Michigan's schedule, and so this would be based on the power rating number difference in its opponents. He'd have Michigan opening the year as a 42-point favorite against New Mexico, a pick'em at Oklahoma, a 37-point favorite against Central Michigan, about a touchdown favorite at Nebraska, a 2-touchdown favorite at home, more than a 2-touchdown favorite at home against Wisconsin, a 10-point favorite on the road at USC, favored by 2 touchdowns at home against Washington, favored by a little more than 2 touchdowns on the road against Sparty, favored by 35 points at home against Purdue, who he has as the worst projected power conference team in the country next season. A 22-point favorite at Northwestern. That game's actually at Wrigley Field. A 2-touchdown favorite at Maryland, and then about a touchdown underdog at Ohio State. Now, I did add subjectively home field advantage here into this. I gave Michigan 3 points for home field in every game, but Ohio State when I made it 4, given the atmosphere. I gave Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, and Michigan State 4 points home field advantage for seeing Michigan as, the biggest, if not one of the biggest home games all year. I only gave Northwestern a 1-point home field advantage with that game at Wrigley. So this would certainly be a favorable schedule to making a playoff run with Bryce Underwood, who I do think will be the starting quarterback in his freshman year. What's your response to these numbers, Mark?
Well, I think it's impossible, Steve, to put together some type of metric system that encompasses this much information, this many teams, this many games, and then spit out the numbers and then say they're all going to be as good as the system should be. There's just too much variance there. So I'm not being critical in any way, because to put a wide-ranging kind of cookie-cutter system together, there's going to be opportunity to then pick it apart, because no system can be that good that's just applied in somewhat of a generic way. The numbers that stand out to me would be the road game at Oklahoma. So I understand difficult place to play. They should have a top level defense. Of course, the offense was a complete disaster last year, and they pick up John Mateer from Washington State, who accounted for 45 touchdowns. But to me, not that the point spread is that out of line, but I believe that Michigan should be a 3 to 4 point favorite in that game. Now, again, 3 to 4 points versus a pick'em doesn't seem like a lot, but I guess it's almost like evaluating the old Iowa teams when there was a Big Ten Western Division, where I didn't have confidence that they would win by much, but I had strong confidence that they would win. Like they didn't need to be more than a 3-point favorite, but I was just confident that they would somehow get the win. I'm not going to say I'm going to be shocked if Michigan comes home with an L, but I am at this point, right in March, confident that they go to Oklahoma and win that game. Just think they're a more talented, more balanced team on both sides of the football.
Do you think, Mark, it matters whether it's the more experienced quarterback? I mean, Mikey Keene has played 65 games of college football and started a majority of them, right? He's got over 8,000 yards career passing. So, listen, he's not been great, but he has played a lot of, I guess we would say, baseline, solid, competent football at quarterback. Played for Chip Lindsey for 2 years, so he knows the system. Do you think it matters whether he is starting that game in Norman? I'm going to presume ESPN's going to make that a primetime night game because it would be their game on the road at an SEC team, not a big noon. So do you think it matters whether it's a guy who's played 5 years of college football already or a guy playing who's a Trevor Lawrence level recruit by all accounts, but it would only be his second game?
I think the conventional wisdom is against a different schedule, meaning the Cream Puffs that they played non-conference for a couple of years there is prepare the stud to get him ready for non-conference or for conference season against the non-conference Cream Puffs. But yeah, it's a difficult one to slice here because on one hand, you want to prepare him for a big crowd if, in fact, you think Bryce Underwood should play the second game. And I think by all indicators, he's an outlier. So even for most teams, most programs that have recruited a high-level 4-star quarterback that they believe is going to be the future, easing him into the process with an experienced Mikey Keene type is the way to go, and that's been the tried and true method. But I just think this guy might be an outlier, and I don't say that based on tape evaluation by myself. I'm not a scout. I know how to watch football, and I know who's good and who's not, but I don't watch high school football. So I'm just going to have to see him play in the spring game first and foremost. But man, when I just look and review this guy's career and the winner that he is, 50-4, 2 state championships, he's a 14-year-old, and I can't evaluate the competition that he's playing in Michigan, but he wins a state championship as a 14-year-old. I just think we're dealing with a different cat here. Comparisons from 247 on 3 to Josh Allen and Vince Young. The comparison I make here, the comp is Jaden Daniels based on numbers and body type, I think, unless maybe he's a bigger, I know he's like 215, so maybe even bigger at this stage of his career than Jaden Daniels, of course, who was quite a skinny guy coming into college play. But I think this might be your outlier, that you have to make a bold move, one or the other, that you get him ready, you believe that he's the starter, you come to this determination, even maybe like, shoot, I know it's not apples to apples because we're talking redshirt freshmen in the case of a Bryce Young and a lot of other examples throughout history. Jameis Winston won a national championship as a redshirt freshman. Much different deal. You've been on campus, you know the system and that sort of thing.
Jake Fromm took Georgia to the national championship game as a true freshman. Yeah.
As a true freshman. Good call.
But it doesn't happen often.
Jake Fromm. I jotted down like 10 examples here of different guys that had excelled. Maybe they didn't lead their teams to championships, but excelled, like a Johnny Manziel. But again, redshirt freshman, Jalen Hurts, national championship game. And so I just think he seems to be the guy that you make the bold move. Oh, I was going to lead into Nick Saban with Bryce Young. That we didn't know anything about Bryce Young. He'd thrown like 3 passes the season before. But I knew that if Nick Saban evaluated Bryce Young, when he had Jay Coker and Jalen Hurts, he let them battle it out throughout the spring and the fall. But with Bryce Young, even before spring practice, he said, that's my starter. He's the starter. But I thought, well, Nick Saban knows what he's doing. I don't know if I trust Sharon Moore to that degree, but this guy seems like an outlier. He seems like he's the guy that you should go with from day one.
What I found interesting also about SP Plus's numbers is they project Michigan to have the number 3 defense. That's right around where it finished last year, 5 or 6. And they bring a ton back. And of course, we saw just the guys. They only lost a few guys. It's just the few guys everybody knows. But we saw what those guys did against Alabama, who essentially had its first string offense in 2 weeks of prep work to go against Wink Martindale. Michigan 51st in offense. I could see that. That's a pretty big improvement from the year before. Not great, but at least competent. What surprised me was 22nd in special teams. And Michigan's been top 10 in special teams the last few years. Now, you and I just, last time we talked, we discussed the punter spot as a key spring practice issue. But I mean, we've got the best kicker probably coming back in college football, certainly among the top 2 or 3. Our coverage return teams are always really good. I would be really surprised if Michigan finished as low as 22 in special teams. And here's why that matters. If you look at his overall metric, man, on neutral fields, Team 3, Penn State, and Team 14, they're only about a touchdown different on a neutral field. I mean, there's a lot of balance there. So your special teams being 22 or being 9th, I mean, over the course of 12 games, Mark, if you're a college football bubble team, that could very well determine which side of that playoff bubble you're on. Just that metric right there alone.
And when we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago, I'm taking from the Iowa model, but from other teams throughout the decades, that if you have figured out the formula of special teams, it seems to be a tried and true method. Now, I know that their special teams coordinator, he's been on board since, I believe, 2021, not necessarily as the special teams coordinator. He was an analyst first, but that you typically, even though the players recycle, that you figured it out and know how to coach and coordinate special teams. And Michigan has joined the Iowa ranks of being that good in that department.
Let's talk about your team. Despite all the losses, the coaching losses, and I listened to a podcast that Bill did, and he said he knew that your Buckeyes are going to be number 1. He wasn't very confident in that, given the amount of turnover within the program and the staff. But they're not just number 1. I mean, they're in terms of power rating, they're like more than a full point ahead of team number 2, who he also said he wasn't very confident in Alabama, but that's, for another network and another show. Looking at SP Plus's numbers and projecting out your team's schedule, he has you guys, again, same thing. For me, as a big game, I think you give a team an extra point for home field advantage. He has you guys a 3-point favorite at Texas in the opener, 30-point favorites at home against Ohio, 17-point favorites on the road against Washington, 23-point favorites at home against Minnesota, a 13-point favorite on the road at Illinois, an 18-point favorite on the road at Wisconsin, a touchdown favorite at home against Penn State, who he's got number 3, a 39-point favorite at Purdue, a 32-point favorite against UCLA, 25-point favorite against Rutgers, and then that aforementioned 6-point favorite on the road against Michigan in the finale. Do any of those numbers seem a little too pie in the sky to you? Do they seem perfectly right in line with what you're expecting? What do you think?
Well, I'm going to keep on the Michigan trail real quick with USC, -10, -10 on the road. I think it's a little bit much on Michigan's side.
I think that's rich. I agree.
Yeah. Coliseum. And I unfortunately looked at the Wisconsin game wrong. They're going to be at home against Wisconsin. I thought they were traveling to Camp Randall, and I thought 15 was way too much there. The Nebraska, I think Michigan's a much better team than 6 points than Nebraska. When I say much better, another 4 or 5 points. But Nebraska, even with the transition from Frost to Rule, seemed to play close against really good teams, and they'll just find a way to lose. But switching to the Buckeyes, 18 points on the road at Wisconsin, even though I've lost a lot of confidence and a certain level of, respect for Luke Fickell. He really needs, he is the one guy that's on the hot seat in the Big Ten this year. Mm-hmm. And 18 points, it seems a little heavy there. Rutgers 25. Okay. The Michigan is the one that's, of course, intriguing because of what the recent history is. If you take the names and the rivalry away from the game and just evaluate the two teams, I guess that's fair. 6-point favorite on the road. Does that compute to 12 at home? They would be a 12-point favorite at home. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a bit much. And then you throw in all the factors of what it's been and what's happened. And I just think that's a little heavy. I would think that your comments section is going to be talking about running to Vegas or FanDuel or wherever their favorite site is to take advantage of that. So
one of the things I found, I ran this exercise with a lot of the top teams in the Big Ten. So I did this with SP Plus's numbers with Oregon, Penn State, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, and Ohio State, and USC. And, we're in the midst of the Sweet 16 right now in the NCAA tournament. And we're having the first ever Sweet 16 since that started in 1975. It's the first time that we've not had any non-power conference team make it to the Sweet 16. And we just had the first round where no top 4 seed lost since 2017. Right? And favorites really didn't just win a lot so far in this tournament, Mark. They're even covering. Okay, so, and everybody's pointing to the transfer portal and NIL and the amount of talent that is being drained from these mid-majors and so on. And that's, leveled the playing field between how many teams at the top could win the NCAA tournament. But that opening weekend of drama, it has expanded the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. I actually saw this reflected when I ran this same exercise with Big Ten teams, that Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State have very similar profiles according to SP+. There's a couple of games, maybe one game for the other teams where there may be a touchdown underdog, but it's always when they're playing the other one. Or in the case of Ohio State, a narrow favorite on the road at Texas, for example. But against everybody else, there's double digits. Not even a middle class. Like you were pointing out, you thought that Michigan being favored by 10 at USC was rich. I agree with you. But you can see this tiering where the top teams, it used to be you and I could bet in January with really good odds who was bet 5 teams to win the national championship, and we were guaranteed to cash that ticket a year later because there was typically only 5 or 6 teams. I've not bet a single team to win the national championship yet in college football. I have no idea who could do it. Now, I've got a pretty good idea who I think could actually get to the playoff, but in terms of who I think could, I don't know. I don't know that I think Ohio State, with its current situation, I would need to see more of the amount of youthful players, particularly Julian Sand, before I thought they could win 4 games and win a college football playoff. And so I think that's reflected in the point spread numbers where, the middle class teams have a lot of, I've counted Iowa, for example, I think had half of its games were within a touchdown or less in the point spread. So you're seeing this separation at the top here in football as well. And so here's Michigan, a team that won just 8 games, brings in the number 1 recruit, brings back a ton of young players from a year ago. And there's only 2 games right now on or 1 game on its roster right now where they're even a definitive underdog. That's crazy.
Also, don't forget, Steve, my plus or minus 3 factor. So if you take last year's standings in the regular season, you take about a third of college football, which we now have 70 in the power conferences, 70 teams in the power conferences. A third of them are either going to increase or decrease by at least 3 wins from this past season. In the Big Ten last year, from 2023 to 2024, that was Indiana and Illinois on the plus side. And that was Michigan, Washington, Northwestern, Maryland, Purdue on the downside. That's 8 out of 18 teams in the Big Ten that had a 3-game increase or decrease in wins from one season to the next. So when people make predictions, they're typically way too conservative, and they need to they need to get ahead of the curve somewhere and be visionaries.
Well said, my friend. Good to see you. Appreciate the time as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You bet. X-poll results. We asked you, does Michigan make it to the Final Four? 69. Nice. 69% of you said no. 31% of you said yes. I would be in the no camp. I'm usually in the no camp, by the way. If you are looking for a robust dosage of reality, masquerading not so cleverly as pessimism, I am your guy. But seriously, I picked Auburn to win it all at the start of the tournament. That brings us to our feedback of the week. Silver Bampy says, Steve, I'm with you. I'm 52. I pretty much go into Michigan, every Michigan game expecting heartbreak. Started cheering at 84, loads of heartbreak. So here's the thing. Michigan's had a ton of success in like every sport that matters since 1984. Every single one. But when you've been doing this since 84, that's around my timeline too, brother. Even though the success level has been palpable and, 99.999% of college sports fans would be jealous of it, those L's start to pile up over the course of 40 years. Those disappointments start to pile up. Also, man, you look at the amount of Rose Bowls we've lost, national championship games that we've lost in college basketball. So, yeah, we've done a lot of bridesmaiding around here in Ann Arbor. No doubt about it. Although not in 2023, we won the national championship, much to the chagrin of everybody who hates us, which I still enjoy. So leave us your comments and also like, rate, subscribe, share, 5-star review, whether you're here on iTunes or listening on YouTube. Or I'm sorry, here on YouTube or listening on iTunes or elsewhere. No matter how you found us, please let people know that you did find us and that you love us. That'll help us to find more Michigan fans just like you, and we appreciate all of your help to that regard. You can also follow us in between episodes, including on game days at Michigan Podcast, but I'm going to warn you, that's a very frustrating experience. All right. We'll be back here next week if Michigan makes it to the Final Four. If not, we'll see you again in a few weeks. Until then, either way, I'm Steve Deace. Go Blue.